I didn't mean to fall in love with her. I meant to hurt her. People always want the clean version of that sentence. The one where I'm either a villain or a victim. The one where the story has a moral you can swallow without tasting blood. But the truth is uglier. At Briarwood University, revenge isn't dramatic. It's strategic, quiet. Reputation matters more than truth, and alliances determine who gets to stay human after a scandal. You don't get destroyed with fists here. You get destroyed with laughter. It started with a message I shouldn't have sent. A late-night confession. A stupid, trembling honesty typed with shaky thumbs because I'd mistaken attention for safety. The kind of message you send when you're lonely and want to be brave for 5 seconds. Tamson Vale took it and turned it into entertainment. Not just the words. The timing. The framing. The implication that I had begged. That I had chased. That I was pathetic enough to hand her my throat and call it trust. She posted screenshots in a private group chat first, then watched them spread like smoke. By morning, everyone knew. By afternoon, everyone had an opinion. And by evening, the campus had decided the funniest thing about me was that I had ever believed I could be wanted and still be respected. I still remember walking into the student center and hearing my name in someone's whisper, followed by that sharp little snort people make when they think humiliation is harmless because it isn't happening to them. I remember the heat crawling up my neck, the way my hands kept tightening around my phone like I could crush the evidence out of existence, the way my stomach turned as if my body was trying to eject the shame. Everyone laughed. No one defended me. Not the people who'd smiled at me last week. Not the girls who'd borrowed my notes. Not even the ones who'd watched Tamson do this to others before and pretended it was just drama. I disappeared in real time. That's what it felt like the person I had been was quietly erased and replaced with a version that deserved mockery. And then I saw her. Ardan Cole, Tamson's stepsister. She wasn't part of the crowd. She wasn't holding a phone up, hungry for the next angle. She stood near the edge of the room like she was trying to make herself smaller than she already was. Soft-spoken, observant. The kind of quiet that isn't emptiness, it's awareness. She looked uncomfortable. Not with me, with them. Her eyes found mine for half a second, and something in my chest tightened, not like attraction, not yet. Like recognition. Like she could see the outline of what had been taken from me and didn't think it was funny. Then, as if she'd realized she was staring, she looked away quickly. But she didn't join the laughter. And that was the first time anyone's silence felt like mercy. I didn't know Ardan. Not really. I just knew where she lived in the campus hierarchy, close enough to power to be protected by it, but not shiny enough to be worshipped. She wasn't Tamson. She didn't command rooms. She watched them. That's why I chose her. Not because I hated her. Because she was close enough to make Tamson bleed. The plan formed in me with a kind of calm that only comes after humiliation. When you've already been stripped down in public, you stop caring about looking good. You start caring about making someone else feel what you felt. I told myself Ardan was safe collateral. I told myself I would be careful. I told myself the goal was simple. Get close. Let Tamson see it. Let it hurt her in a place she pretended she didn't have. Then walk away. That was the lie I fed myself. Because even in the beginning, before the coffee, before the late-night texts, before the first time Ardan's voice went soft like she was touching a bruise, I knew something I refused to say out loud. Revenge doesn't require tenderness. It requires proximity. And Ardan Cole looked like the kind of girl who would let someone close if they asked like they meant it. So I learned how to ask. And I walked toward her like I wasn't holding a weapon behind my back. I didn't approach Ardan immediately. Revenge works best when it looks accidental. I waited 3 days. Long enough for the humiliation to settle into something that looked survivable. long enough for Tamson to assume I'd retreated like everyone expected me to. Then I chose the right moment. Outside the literature building, just after class. Ardan was alone, headphones in, flipping through her notes like she was trying to memorize something before it slipped away. I stepped into her line of sight. She looked up, and for a split second, something flickered across her face. Guilt. Not because she'd done anything, because she hadn't. "Hey," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. "You're in Dr. Kessler's seminar, right?" She pulled one headphone out. "Yeah." Her voice was softer up close. Not timid. Measured. "I missed part of the reading," I lied. "Do you have the notes?" I didn't need the notes. I needed the excuse. She hesitated, not suspiciously. Just assessing. Like she was trying to decide whether helping me would make things worse. Then she nodded. "I can send them." "Coffee?" I added quickly. "I'll buy." There was a pause. Not long, but long enough that I felt the weight of it. "Okay," she said. That's how it started. Not dramatic. Not seductive. Just proximity wrapped in politeness. The cafe near campus was too warm, too crowded, too public to be intimate, but that was the point. I needed her to feel safe. We sat across from each other, knees brushing once under the table. She noticed. So did I. "Are you okay?" she asked after a few minutes. I looked up. "What do you mean?" "Since," she said carefully. "Everything." There it was. The doorway. I let my shoulders slump just enough. Let my fingers curl around the coffee cup like I needed something solid to hold on to. "It's fine," I said lightly. I shouldn't have trusted her. Her jaw tightened slightly at the mention of Tamson. "She shouldn't have done that," Ardan said. The words were simple, but they weren't neutral. I watched her closely. "You don't have to defend me." "I'm not," she replied. "I just don't think humiliation is funny." That was the moment I understood something important. Ardan wasn't naive. She was principled, and that made her easier to reach. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. "I just misread the situation," I said. "That's on me." "You don't deserve to be turned into a lesson," she said quietly. My pulse stuttered. That wasn't part of the plan. No one had framed it that way before. I swallowed. "I'll survive." She studied me like she didn't fully believe that. "People think I'm fragile," I added, letting a small smile slip through. "I'm not." Arden's eyes flicked to my hands. They were shaking. She reached across the table slowly, like she was giving me time to pull away, and touched my wrist. Just 2 fingers. Barely pressure. My body reacted before my mind did. Heat. Awareness. The sudden, disorienting knowledge of how close we actually were. "You don't have to pretend you're fine," she said softly. The irony almost made me laugh. If she only knew. I held her gaze for a beat too long. "This isn't pretending," I said. That was my first real lie. Over the next week, I made myself available in small, believable ways. Walking out of class at the same time. Sitting near her in the library. Texting her late, not flirty, not overt. Just consistent. She responded. Always. And the worst part? She wasn't chasing me. She was meeting me halfway. The first time she laughed at something I said and leaned forward without realizing it, her knee pressing firmly against mine, I felt something sharp twist in my chest. It wasn't triumph. It was anticipation. Tamson noticed. I saw it the afternoon she caught us talking outside the humanities building. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't storm over. She just watched. Calm. Cold. Calculating. That was the goal. To make her watch. To make her feel it. I told myself I was in control. I told myself this was strategy. But when Ardan texted me that night, "Did you get home safe?" and I felt my breath catch at the simplicity of it, I realized something dangerous was forming. Because revenge isn't supposed to feel like being cared for. And I was starting to like the way she said my name. Not like a rumor. Like it mattered. I reminded myself why I was here. I reminded myself who this was for. And then I typed back, "Yeah, thanks. You didn't have to check." She replied almost immediately. I wanted to. That should have made things easier. Instead, it made them complicated. Because proximity was supposed to hurt someone else. Not me. The second week is when it stopped feeling like a plan and started feeling like a pattern. We studied together 3 nights in a row. Not because we had to. Because neither of us suggested we shouldn't. Ardan's dorm room was smaller than mine. Warmer. Books stacked in careful piles, fairy lights strung low enough to soften the corners of the space. It smelled faintly like vanilla and paper. Safe. That word again. We sat on her bed the first night because there wasn't enough space at her desk. Our knees touched naturally, like proximity was the most efficient way to exist. I told myself not to move. She didn't either. We worked in silence for a while. Pages turning, pens scratching, the quiet stretching between us without tension. "You don't look like someone who panics easily," she said suddenly. I glanced at her. "What does that mean?" "You're calm now," she replied. "After everything." I smiled faintly. "That's just good acting." She didn't laugh. "That sounds exhausting," she said instead. I swallowed. There's something dangerous about someone who doesn't accept the version of you that's convenient. She shifted slightly, turning toward me. Her thigh pressed more firmly against mine. "Does it still hurt?" she asked. "Yes," I said before I could stop myself. The honesty slipped out too easily. Her hand moved again, slow, cautious, resting just above my knee this time. Not possessive. Not bold. Testing. "You didn't deserve that," she said quietly. My body leaned toward her before my mind approved it. "You don't know what I deserved," I whispered. Her eyes darkened slightly. "I know humiliation isn't justice." The air changed. It felt heavier, warmer. She didn't pull her hand away. Neither did I. This was the part where I should have escalated strategically. Leaned closer. Said something suggestive. Made sure the proximity served its purpose. Instead, I just watched her. The curve of her mouth when she was concentrating. The way she chewed lightly on her lower lip when she was thinking. The faint flush creeping up her neck when our eyes held too long. I wasn't studying her as leverage anymore. I was memorizing her. Later, when I stood to leave, she walked me to the door like she was worried I might disappear if she didn't. "Text me when you get back," she said. "Why?" I asked. "So I know you're okay." Her voice was steady. Mine wasn't. "You don't have to worry about me." She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel her breath shift against my cheek. "I know," she said. "I want to." That did something to me. Because revenge feels sharp. This felt slow. I went back the next night. And the night after that. We talked more than we studied. About small things at first, classes, professors, campus politics. Then about bigger things. Her childhood. The way moving into Tamson's house had felt like learning to live beside a storm. The way being the quiet one made people underestimate her. "You and her aren't alike," I said. She smiled faintly. "We're not." There was something underneath that answer. Something complicated. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the window, she sat beside me instead of across from me, shoulder to shoulder, our arms brushing when we reached for the same page. My heart started beating harder, not from nerves, from anticipation. "You don't have to keep pretending you're okay," she said again, softer this time. "Maybe I don't know how to stop," I admitted. She turned toward me fully now. "Then let someone see it," she said. Her hand found my waist. Tentative. Steady. The touch wasn't dramatic. It wasn't possessive. It was asking. My breath hitched. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't something I'd calculated. This was something I wanted. And that realization scared me more than Tamson ever had. Because proximity is easy to fake. Desire isn't. When Ardan's thumb brushed lightly against my side, testing whether I'd pull away, I didn't. I leaned in instead. Slowly. Carefully. Like I was about to cross a line I hadn't meant to draw. Revenge had required closeness. But this felt like surrender. And I wasn't sure who I was surrendering to. The first time Tamson confronted me, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She cornered me outside the business building, late afternoon light slicing across the pavement. Students moved around us, unaware that something sharp was happening in plain sight. "You're spending a lot of time with my sister," she said. Not a question. An observation. I met her gaze. "We have class together." Tamson's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Don't insult me." There it was, the tone she used when she'd already decided she was right. "Whatever this is," she continued calmly, "end it." I tilted my head slightly. "You don't get to control who I talk to." Her expression flickered, just for a second. "No," she agreed. "But I do get to protect my family." The irony almost made me laugh. "From what?" I asked. "From you." The word landed harder than I expected. "You think I'm dangerous?" I said quietly. She stepped closer. Close enough that her perfume cut through the air. "I think you're angry," she replied. "And angry people make mistakes." Her eyes dropped briefly to my mouth, then back up. "Stay away from Ardan," she said softly. "This isn't a game you can win." For a moment, I felt it, the old humiliation rising, the instinct to retreat. Then I remembered why I'd started. "I'm not playing," I said. Tamson studied me like she was trying to decide whether I believed that. "Be careful," she murmured. "You might not like what happens when this blows up." She walked away before I could respond. And for the first time, the revenge didn't feel satisfying. It felt unstable. That night, Ardan asked if I wanted to get dinner. I almost said no. Instead, I said yes. We sat across from each other in a quiet corner of a restaurant just off campus. Candlelight soft enough to blur edges. The kind of setting that turns ordinary conversation into something intimate. "You seem distracted," she said gently. "Your sister talked to me today," I admitted. Her jaw tightened. "What did she say?" "That I'm bad news." Ardan exhaled slowly, like she'd expected something like that. "She doesn't trust easily," she said. "Do you?" I asked. She held my gaze. Yes, the word hit deeper than any threat Tamson had made. "Why?" I pressed. "Because you don't look like someone who lies easily," she said. My throat tightened. That was the moment I almost told her. Almost said, I started this to hurt her. Almost admitted that every coffee, every late-night text, every careful glance had begun as strategy. But Ardan reached across the table and took my hand before I could speak. "Whatever this is," she said softly, "I'm choosing it." Choosing. The word terrified me, because she didn't know what she was choosing. When we left the restaurant, the air was cool, the campus quieter than usual. We walked slowly, hands brushing once, twice, until she finally laced her fingers through mine. It felt natural. Too natural. "I don't care what she thinks," Ardan said quietly. "I care what you think." I stopped walking. She turned toward me. "What do you think this is?" she asked. The honest answer was dangerous. The strategic answer was safer. But standing there under the soft spill of streetlight, her hand warm in mine, I couldn't find the version of myself that had started this. "I think," I said slowly, "I didn't expect you." Her expression softened. "Good," she whispered. Then she stepped closer. Not rushed. Not reckless. Intentional. And for the first time, when she leaned in, I didn't think about Tamson at all. I thought about the way Ardan's breath warmed my skin, about the way her thumb traced circles against my knuckles, about how easy it would be to let this become something real. That was the first crack in the plan, because revenge had been clear. This was complicated, and somewhere between Tamson's warning and Ardan's quiet trust, I realized I wasn't sure who would bleed if this went wrong, or whether I deserved to be the one who didn't. It wasn't supposed to happen that night. There was no dramatic buildup, no music swelling in the background, just rain tapping softly against Ardan's window and the hum of campus quieting down outside. We'd argued softly, stupidly, about something small. A comment Tamson had made in passing. A look she'd given us in the hallway. "You don't have to prove anything," Ardan said, pacing once across her dorm room before turning back to me. Not to her. "I'm not proving anything," I replied too quickly. Her eyes narrowed, not suspicious, but searching. "Then why do you tense every time she's around?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to explain that Tamson was the reason I was here in the first place. That every time Ardan defended me, it felt like winning a game I designed. Ardan stepped closer. "You don't have to keep pretending you're okay," she said. There it was again. The thing she always offered. Permission. My chest tightened. "I'm not pretending." "You are," she whispered. Her voice wasn't accusing. It was careful. She reached out slowly this time, her hand settling against my waist like she was asking the question her words couldn't. My body answered before my mind did. I didn't pull away. Her thumb pressed gently against the fabric of my shirt. Not demanding, just steady. Warm. "You can tell me the truth," she said. The truth would ruin this. The lie would protect it. Instead, I did something reckless. I stepped closer. Our bodies aligned in a way that erased the space between intention and consequence. Her breath caught, just slightly, and I felt it like a spark against my skin. "Why do you look at me like that?" she asked, barely audible. "Like what?" My voice was unsteady now. "Like I'm something you're afraid to touch." That undid me, because she was right. I was afraid, not of her, of what I was starting to want. Her fingers tightened slightly at my waist, and she leaned in, not fast, not dramatic. Slow enough that I could have stopped her. Slow enough that I could have turned my head and called it a misunderstanding. I didn't. The first brush of her lips against mine was careful, testing, curious. It wasn't the kind of kiss meant to conquer. It was the kind meant to learn. She pulled back just enough to search my face. "This okay?" she asked. The fact that she asked made it worse. "Yeah," I breathed. That was the moment everything shifted. The second kiss wasn't hesitant. It was deeper. Her hand slid from my waist to the small of my back, pulling me closer, and I felt the heat of her body like it had always belonged there. My fingers curled into the fabric of her shirt without permission. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't leverage. This was surrender. Her lips parted slightly, and the kiss changed slower, heavier, charged with something that had nothing to do with revenge. I felt her exhale against me. I felt my name form on her mouth. And for one terrifying second, I forgot why I had ever come here. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing harder than we should have been, Ardan rested her forehead against mine. "I've wanted to do that for a while," she admitted softly. My heart stuttered. "For how long?" I asked. "Long enough to know it's not a mistake." The word mistake echoed louder than it should have. Because it wasn't supposed to feel like this. It was supposed to feel calculated, controlled. Instead, my pulse was racing, my skin hypersensitive where she'd touched me, my thoughts unraveling. She brushed her thumb across my cheek gently. "You don't have to look so shocked," she murmured. I almost laughed. If she only knew. I pulled her back into me before I could think better of it. The next kiss was urgent. Not rushed, but real. Her hands moved with more confidence now, tracing the curve of my waist, the line of my spine. Mine slid up to the back of her neck, fingers threading through her hair like I'd done it 100 times before. The room felt smaller, hotter, safer. And that was the problem, because revenge is sharp and clean. This was messy. This was tender. And when she whispered my name against my mouth like it mattered, I realized something I wasn't ready to admit. I couldn't hurt her now, not without hurting myself. And that wasn't part of the plan. After the kiss, everything rearranged itself. Not loudly, not all at once. Just enough that I noticed the difference in the way Ardan looked at me, like she was seeing something new and trusting it to stay. We didn't label anything. We didn't have to. The shift lived in smaller things, the way she reached for my hand without thinking, the way I started leaving my jacket in her room, the way our conversations drifted later into the night until sleep felt optional. Secrecy crept in and called itself privacy. I told myself it was safer this way. For her. For me. For the version of us that hadn't been tested yet. Ardan opened up in fragments. Stories about growing up in Tamson's shadow. About learning early how to stay quiet so storms would pass. About the relief of being with someone who didn't expect her to perform. "I like who I am with you," she said one night, tracing circles on my wrist with her thumb. "I don't feel managed." The word made my stomach twist. I kissed her to keep from answering. That became my habit, redirecting truth into touch, letting heat blur the edges of guilt. She responded easily, generously, like affection was a language she'd been waiting to speak fluently. I learned the cadence of her breathing, the places she relaxed when I pressed closer, the way she smiled against my mouth when I slowed down instead of rushing. It would have been easy to pretend this was innocent. It wasn't. Every time Ardan laughed softly at something I said, every time she leaned into me like she trusted my hands to know what they were doing, the lie I was living grew heavier. And Tamson noticed. She always did. I caught her watching us from across the quad one afternoon, arms crossed, expression unreadable. No confrontation. No scene. Just attention sharpened into something deliberate. That night, Ardan mentioned her sister casually. "She asked about you," she said, like it meant nothing. My chest tightened. "What did you say?" "That you're good to me." The words landed harder than any accusation. I should have told her then. Should have sat her down, taken her hands, let the truth burn its way through whatever we were becoming. Instead, I smiled and kissed her shoulder. "Thanks," I said. "That means a lot." The guilt didn't make me pull away. It made me cling. I stayed longer, held her closer, told myself that if this felt real enough, it could overwrite the beginning. That if I loved her hard enough, the reason I'd come to her wouldn't matter. But love doesn't erase origins. It exposes them. And somewhere, while Ardan slept beside me, breath warm and trusting against my skin, I felt it, the shift. The sense that time was tightening around us. Like something was waiting. Like the truth had learned our schedule. And when Ardan stirred and murmured my name in her sleep, reaching for me without opening her eyes, I felt the full weight of what I was risking. Not Tamson's anger. Ardan's belief. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, knowing with sudden clarity that I had crossed a line I couldn't step back over. Because the lie wasn't just surviving anymore. It was growing teeth. And whatever came next would draw blood, no matter how gently I tried to hold her.